la invitación y quiero hacerle un regalo, porque vamos a tener el próximo año
Last night, the President of the United States reached out to schedule a call. I appreciate this opportunity to discuss how we can...
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is currently engaged in extensive, complex, and highly sensitive diplomatic preparations for a pivotal and strategically crucial visit to Mexico, a journey that has been meticulously scheduled for the upcoming month of September. Welcome viewers to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. This critical and deliberately timed trip is not merely a courtesy call or a standard diplomatic exercise, but is fundamentally and enduringly designed to not only strengthen, but also to actively and proactively fortify the vital trade and economic relations that exist between the two North American partners. This renewed and urgent focus on bilateral ties is made all the more imperative and significant as both nations continue to navigate and grapple with the significant, multifaceted, and often unpredictable economic pressures that are emanating from the United States under the renewed presidency of Donald Trump. This diplomatic mission is unfolding at an exceptionally precarious juncture in North American history, as the entire regional trade landscape has been defined by a constant state of uncertainty, profound instability, and a palpable and escalating rise in protectionist measures being actively pursued and implemented by the U.S. government. The visit, set for September 18th, is a cornerstone and a central component of Canada's broader, more resilient strategic vision, which aims to systematically and progressively diversify its economic partnerships and, in so doing, reduce its historical and precarious over-reliance on the American market, which has for decades served as its primary and almost exclusive trading destination. The unprecedented and punitive United States tariff strategy and its starkly disparate impact on its partners. The re-election of President Trump for a second, non-consecutive term has unequivocally ushered in an entirely new and complex era of heightened trade tensions and considerable friction within the trilateral North American bloc. The Trump administration has demonstrated a consistent and unhesitating willingness to use punitive tariffs as a powerful and blunt instrument to leverage its domestic economic and political interests against its trading partners. This aggressive and unilateral trade policy was made strikingly and painfully evident on August 1st, when the U.S. government implemented a significant and economically damaging increase in tariffs, raising them to a steep and formidable 35%. These new tariffs were specifically and strategically applied to certain Canadian goods that are not covered under the comprehensive protection of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA. This aggressive action was taken after Canada failed to meet a crucial August 1st deadline to secure a new and more favorable tariff agreement, a diplomatic setback that Minister Dominic LeBlanc candidly acknowledged, stating that no viable or acceptable deal was on the negotiation table at the time, underscoring the deep and persistent impasse in discussions. In a move that has been widely scrutinized by international media, debated by policy experts, and has caused significant strategic alarm and a fundamental reevaluation of policy in Ottawa, the Trump administration has taken a starkly different and noticeably less punitive approach with Mexico. Instead of imposing immediate tariffs, which would have inflicted a heavy economic toll on the Mexican economy, it granted the country a generous 90-day extension on its current tariff regime. This decision provides a crucial window for further and ongoing negotiations, highlighting the distinct, often unpredictable, and seemingly inconsistent strategies the U.S. is deploying with its two largest North American trading partners. This profound and unsettling disparity in treatment and policy application underscores the fragile and often tenuous nature of the current trilateral trade bloc and the complex political calculations at play in Washington. The differing American policies toward Canada and Mexico, despite them both being CUSMA partners, have created a palpable and urgent sense of necessity for Canada to find new, more secure avenues to protect its economic interests and to actively seek closer, more reliable bilateral ties with Mexico. This strategic divergence by the United States has accelerated Canada's pivot away from its historical reliance on the U.S. and towards a more diversified and secure economic future, as trade data shows exports to the U.S. have dropped significantly. Canada's proactive and strategic pivot to diversify trade and strengthen bilateral alliances. Prime Minister Carney's upcoming visit to Mexico is a clear and undeniable manifestation of his government's long-term strategic vision for a more economically resilient Canada. A central and defining pillar of Carney's foreign policy is the imperative to methodically and systematically reduce Canada's profound economic dependence on the United States, which has historically accounted for a vast and overwhelming majority of Canadian exports. By proactively and deliberately seeking to expand and deepen relationships with other nations, particularly with its fellow CUSMA partner Mexico, the government aims to create a more diversified, balanced, and robust economic portfolio. This determined effort was significantly bolstered by a recent and productive visit from two senior Canadian ministers, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand and Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne, to Mexico City. The minister's visit was a deliberate and calculated move to kickstart a more robust bilateral economic partnership, laying the crucial political and economic groundwork for the Prime Minister's subsequent and more comprehensive visit. This two-step diplomatic approach demonstrates the seriousness with which Canada is pursuing this new strategic direction, recognizing that its trade infrastructure is largely designed for a north-south flow. Historically, while Canada and Mexico have been CUSMA partners and geographically share the North American continent, their direct bilateral trade relationship has not been as fully developed or integrated as their respective individual relationships with the United States. Past trade negotiations have, at times, revealed a notable lack of complete harmony between the two, with each country often prioritizing its own unique bilateral relationship with the U.S. Champagne's candid comments during his recent trip acknowledged this long-standing reality with refreshing honesty, stating, "With Mexico, we are neighbors, but we could get to know each other better." This simple but powerful statement highlights the untapped potential of the relationship and the shared challenges that can now be addressed collaboratively. Minister Anand further elaborated on the concrete, tangible steps being taken to achieve this goal, mentioning that the two nations are exploring new logistical and infrastructural connections, including the establishment of direct port-to-port lines of trade. This strategic focus on transportation infrastructure is a clear and tangible effort to create new avenues for commerce that are inherently less reliant on existing U.S. supply chains and transit routes. The overarching goal is to construct a more integrated, symbiotic, and interconnected North American economy where Canada and Mexico can collaborate more effectively, present a more unified front in future negotiations, and collectively create a more stable, predictable, and resilient trade environment for their respective businesses. This strategic recalibration is seen as absolutely essential for successfully navigating the volatile and unpredictable nature of U.S. trade policy and for securing Canada's long-term economic prosperity in a rapidly changing global landscape. Domestic political fallout and intense public scrutiny. The government's handling of these complex and sensitive international trade issues has rapidly become a central and contentious point of political debate on the domestic front. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has emerged as a sharp, persistent, and vocal critic, publicly accusing Prime Minister Carney of displaying a distinct weakness and a fundamental lack of resolve on the international stage. Poilievre has repeatedly and pointedly questioned the overall effectiveness of Carney's diplomatic approach, particularly in light of his past reputation as a shrewd and successful deal-maker in the global financial arena. During a recent and highly publicized news conference, Poilievre directly challenged the Prime Minister's campaign promises and credibility, stating, "Mark Carney promised that he was an international man of mystery who was going to negotiate deals and end tariffs. Well, what's the result been so far?" This pointed line of attack suggests that the opposition views the current trade disputes not merely as an external challenge.